Good day. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. It's Tuesday, October the 18th, 2022. We've got CEO Frank Gleeson and CTO Phil Lambert of Satellos Bioscience. Satellos is a therapeutics company that has developed a platform technology leveraging new proprietary research on how muscle stem cells regulate muscle repair and growth. I'm very happy to have Frank Gleeson join us today, and as well with his newly hired Chief Technology Officer, Phil Lambert. Satellos team has been very busy over the last 8 months since we last talked to them, and it's been just over a little more than a year since the company has gone public. Most notably, the company has continued developing its lead drug candidates targeting Duchenne muscular dystrophy, has raised $3.5 million during very difficult market conditions, and has most recently hired Phil. Today, I'm looking to understand how progress is coming on the development of its lead drug candidates for the IND process, what the next steps are and milestones the company is expecting over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I'm also looking to better understand the potential for their technology beyond Duchenne to other degenerative diseases and issue. But please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Frank, Phil, thank you very much for joining us, and glad to have you here today.
Okay. Thanks so much, Martin. And we're really pleased and excited to be here speaking with you. And thank you for the opportunity to use your forum to speak with investors and other interested parties who want to learn about Satellos. And I'm really thrilled to have my brand new colleague, Dr. Phil Lambert, here with me. Phil has recently joined the company as the Chief Technology Officer. And that is significant for us for a couple of reasons. One, Phil has a tremendous background in the early phases of drug discovery, which is moving newly defined compounds into early clinical development. And two, that means that we believe we're right on the cusp of doing that ourselves. So Phil joins at a time to help take the lead role in moving us forward into the clinical development phase. All of the studies that will need to be done to file with the FDA and Health Canada, and then to move forward. So I couldn't be happier than to introduce him to all of you that are listening in today.
And Phil, sorry to interrupt, Frank. Can you maybe just give us a bit of, there was the news release a few weeks ago. Just talk a bit about your background, and you've worked for some very large biotech firms, pharma firms out there. Why Satellos? What's your expertise, and what brought you here?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've spent the last 30 years in drug discovery and development. Always being very focused on finding opportunities where I could really make a difference for patients. Ultimately, that's the end goal, to move therapeutics forward for unmet medical need. And when Satellos was presented to me, it'd been a long time since I'd seen an opportunity that I thought was so close to being able to do that for patients. So here's a situation where we have novel molecules that I really believe are going to make a difference for patients that have muscle diseases. And you alluded to it in your intro, but potentially a number of muscle diseases. We're focused very much on Duchenne muscular dystrophy at this moment, but I think the mechanism plays in a number of different muscle diseases. And where the stage of the company, the science behind the company that's been built over a number of years, and the people involved in the company were really the pieces that attracted me to it. Because I think you need all of those together to really have a chance of success. You know, this is a tough business, coming up with novel therapeutics that are really going to make a difference. And I think Satellos is as well positioned as anybody to be able to do that in the next few months.
All right. And I guess just people's various expertise, your expertise in the drug development, this technology was founded and developed by Rudnicki, and he's not a guy who brings, he's obviously a very smart, accomplished researcher, but his expertise is not in drug development and bringing it through an FDA process and all that. He's more working in a lab doing that kind of a thing.
Yeah, whether this is a fantastic partnership, as you say, the science has come out at Michael's lab, and he's done a phenomenal job with a wealth of science, which means that what I would describe as the scientific rationale behind this has been well positioned, is now ready to go. We understand how this mechanism works to drive muscle regeneration, and we understand how to the targets that we can drug to actually influence that. My role, I'm a pharmacologist, a neuroscientist by training, but I've spent most of my career in that piece of the drug discovery development pathway where you're really now taking those molecules and actually getting the proof of concept behind them to move them into the IND enabling type studies. Those studies we need to do before we can go into a person and really evaluate the compound, in a clinical setting. And so I'm certainly a scientist at heart, but I'm really more of a, focused on those operational pieces, really focusing the program to make sure that we can move these molecules forward over those hurdles we need to give ourselves a chance to really, really help patients.
All right, Frank, I interrupted you a little bit, and I know we discussed a little bit, and I'm not sure what you were about to say, but I do hope we get to do for new audience members here, get a brief overview on Satellos, just to kind of bring everyone up to speed on what exactly the firm and the whole team is up to.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you for bringing me back to that, Martin. Satellos is focused on muscle regeneration. So we are literally attempting to enable the body to rebuild muscle. So we are working on small molecule drugs, which is just code words for a pill that a person could take that would restore that person's ability for his or her muscle to heal itself. And this is critically important in a number of situations where there are devastating diseases that have muscle degeneration as an underlying reality of the disease. And so people lose the ability to use their limbs, they lose the ability to walk, and sometimes in severe cases, their entire skeletal muscle infrastructure collapses and they lose their lives. So the lead drug that we're trying to develop is for an indication called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is a genetic disorder that kills young male children well before their time. And the heart of the disease is that their muscles become destroyed. And the reason that we have discovered is that their body is unable to regenerate new muscle. And before Satellos came along, and my colleague, Dr. Rudnicki, who's a co-founder, this was not understood. It was not understood that this was a disease of degeneration that was caused by the inability of the body to repair itself. Muscle is designed to repair itself throughout life. That is one of the fascinating aspects of muscle and our ability to grow, to get bigger, to get stronger, to recover from injury, to go to the gym and feel better a couple of days later after we work out all the kinks and so on. It's because our body is constantly repairing and regenerating muscle in normal times. But in certain situations, that isn't the case. And as my colleague Phil pointed out, this applies to many disease situations. There are over 30 different types of muscular dystrophy that we know of. We are being regularly approached by different philanthropic groups now for these quite rare diseases to see if we could help with them. There are also diseases related to aging, and we might be familiar if we're getting older or we have loved ones that are getting older about the chronic loss of strength and muscle mass that occurs in aging. Well, this also is caused by the body's losing its ability to regenerate muscle. We believe that there's the potential to correct this. And there are many, many other conditions, muscular atrophy and so on, where we believe we can have an effect. So we have been working on developing novel approaches. We have made biological discoveries that are both scientifically astounding as well as patentable, and we have been filing patents on a regular basis on our discoveries. And we have also discovered new classes of molecules for what are called drug targets that we believe can change the outcomes for these patients. And so we have shortlisted a number of compounds. This is one of the key reasons that Phil's hiring is so timely for us, because we now have the drug candidates that we need to start moving forward with the next level of testing and determination of readiness for clinical development. So, we're really excited. We're pumped up about what we're doing, and we're always happy to be on your show, Martin.
So just to dial back what you were saying before, is it fair to say that previously for, I don't know, all MS, but specifically for Duchenne, the perception or the idea was that something was attacking the body or that, so that was causing the degeneration, where in fact your thesis is that the degeneration is just the normal sort of cells dying, and then but it forgot or doesn't have the ability to then regenerate. Like after you go to the gym and you do a hard workout, you don't get stronger after the fact. So it's the lack of rebuilding as opposed to something attacking it, for crudely saying it.
This is it in a nutshell. You've summarized it very, very well. If I may just make one slight comment, it's Duchenne muscular dystrophy, so it's MD, not MS. So just
I'm sorry.
Just because that's another type of disease. So in MD, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the classical view had been that muscle fibers, once they were formed, were an end product. That was the final form. And so it was believed that when the fiber became damaged, the fiber had to be fixed. And what Michael Rudnicki discovered was that the fiber is constantly refreshing. It's constantly being repaired and restored naturally. And in fact, new fibers can be created. And the genesis of all this are cells that Dr. Rudnicki first identified and characterized, which are called satellite stem cells. That's why we call the company Satellos, because the actual cells are colloquially referred to as satellite stem cells. So these satellite stem cells live deep within muscle, and their purpose was not known until Dr. Rudnicki came along, identified them, and spent 20 years figuring out what they do and how they do it. And now we've come along as Satellos to stand on his shoulders and say, okay, nature can do this. Perhaps drug intervention can do what nature isn't doing in a disease setting. That's what we're working on. And that's Phil's role now, coming onto the team.
And so you have the mechanism to sort of get these satellite cells going or to propagate so they start doing their job.
Yes.
Yeah, we've identified a target. More importantly, we've identified a target that we can drug, a target that we can create drugs against, that we know we can manipulate in a way to cause that regeneration to come back, is the best way to describe it. And now we're in a position actually where we have a number of different novel drugs, and we're in the process of deciding which are the best ones to go forward.
Yeah.
But we have a number of molecules that we know we can do this with, and now it's a question of deciding which one we're going to move, forward into the clinic.
So with moving those forward, is it just one you're going to move forward, or you're going to sort of do you have like a dozen of them right now and you're just trying to filter it down and what are the best 2 or 3 candidates and move those 2 or 3 forward, or you're trying to get it down to one?
It'll be more than one, because we would always have a somewhat of a backup plan in terms of molecules coming through. So it'll be more than one, but it's down to 2 or 3 best molecules that we're going to actually move ahead. And they have to be the best in a number of different ways. Obviously, the best at driving the regeneration, driving the effect we want, but also the best in terms of them being safe and very much like a drug and able to go into a pill. All those sorts of things come into play as well. But yes, it would be 2 or 3 of the best of those that we would be moving ahead.
Gotcha. So in the next few months or so, hopefully you'll announce, okay, we've nailed down the drug candidates. And then once you do that, what are the next steps in the process?
So then there's a whole list of studies that are referred to as IND enabling studies. So we ultimately have to file, at least in the US, we have to file an IND for us to be able to go forward with any sort of clinical program. And IND being investigational new drug application that we put in to move into the clinic. And to do that, we need to run through some very regulated studies that are defined by the FDA that we need to put the compound through before we're able to do that. And so those are fairly well set. You know, the FDA defines what you have to do there, and it's a program of different studies that we will then run through before, and then we submit that package to the FDA, and the FDA gives us the green light to go ahead and move into people.
And those IND studies, are they partially some preliminary safety issues? And then as well, some preliminary, do you have the science to, because it's a bit of a gating system for them, because they don't want every joker to send in a drug. You got to do this basic stuff. It legitimizes that it's a legitimate effort and that you've put serious work into it, and then they'll have a look at it. Their
big focus obviously is safety in terms of making sure that everything's safe to go into people. But that will have our scientific rationale involved there. And then most of the studies are focused on safety, as you pointed out. They're focused on the toxicity, as we call it, or hopefully the lack of toxicity for the molecule, and the safety aspects for certain systems within the body that we need to play out to make sure that, you know, no harm will be done if we start investigating the compound in people.
Gotcha. Okay, so in the next few months, announce the candidates, start the IND process. How long does it take till the IND, your application, gets submitted?
Well, we imagine that we'll be looking towards the beginning of 2024.
That you'll be submitting the IND application?
If I may. We'd like to be in a position, as we've directed the market before, towards in the fourth quarter of 2023, to be in a position to submit to the FDA or to Health Canada. So we're working on that timeline, which puts us into early 2024 to read out results or have data from our first clinical program. So that's what we're attempting to do. And, you know, some of this will be dependent on scheduling of all the IND work and so on. So, you know, there's always a little bit of there could be slippage. There always could be slippage of a month or 2 months, but this is the overall plan.
So that's when you would get the positive affirmation back from the FDA or Health Canada saying you've sort of passed the IND process.
Yeah. In fact, oddly, perhaps the way it works is it's not they don't send you a letter saying go ahead. They just don't send you a letter saying don't go ahead.
Okay.
So the way it works is you submit, and both regulators have the same statutory timeline. They're obliged to reply within 30 days if they have any objections or comments. And so absent any notice from them, you just keep going.
Okay, so you give your submission, you don't hear back from them in 30 days, then it's full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And then the step after that would be then doing the phase 1, the sort of the traditional phase 1 safety.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've always been trying, you know, to get to a point before the end of 2023 that we're in front of, that we have something in front of the FDA and Health Canada. And that's still what we're trying to do.
Gotcha. And then at the beginning of 2024, that's when your phase one
Right.
that's when the
Yes.
real human trials would start
Yes,
going.
exactly.
Yeah.
They might start at the end of the year. They might start in January, but in that time frame, and then data starts to read out quickly thereafter. So
Yeah.
that's important.
And you're going to move ahead with, let's say, 2 or 3 of drug candidates. Would you do a safety trial on all 2 or 3, or by that time you would have maybe through your IND process understood a bit better and then say, okay, this drug B, that's the one that looks to be the best, and then you sort of narrow it down to that?
Yeah, I think we would ultimately, I think, put 2 or 3 through, but I think that first one going through to inform is important as well. So that I think they would be staggered, shall we say, once we got some information as we're going through the IND enabling studies, because obviously we get information from the individual studies as we go forward, just to make sure that we were on the right track. So that they would be somewhat staggered, but we would ultimately bring more than one molecule through the IND enabling studies.
All right. Every business, but I think biotech and drug development more so, it's all very milestone based. What kind of milestones, like we're going to, within a little while, we'll get our drug candidates announced. And then what other, through the coming, let's say 12 months, milestones should investors look forward to hearing about? And does that trigger any other things where you can, I don't know, partnerships or do like, or put posters up at different conferences to get more attention to it? At what stages do you get to sort of raise the flag a little bit and talk about things?
Yeah, this is a really important question, and it's particularly important for a company like Satellos because, admittedly, we are early in the process from a drug development perspective, and sometimes it's not clear how value gets built when you're early stage. And so the types of things that will happen and are beginning to happen. So I mentioned briefly that conducting IND enabling studies requires scheduling of studies, which means we have to engage contract research organizations that are expert in the types of studies. So we have to enter into contracts with them and so on. And we've already begun the process of reaching out to these groups now to see about scheduling time in their organizations and so on. So in the coming weeks and months, the market will see that we'll start entering into contracts to begin some of this IND enabling work. That's all building value. We will start being in a position to consider filing for orphan drug status, for pediatric orphan drug status, so that we can build value around our molecules. And we're in a position now that we can start engaging with groups that have expertise in filing those kinds of applications with the regulators. So those are some simple and clear examples, and they also put us in a position to get on the radar of more companies, which we're already seeing. So we were recently at the World Muscle Congress, which this year was in Halifax, which is the largest annual gathering of pharmaceutical and biotech and academic individuals and groups working in this space. And we had a very active agenda. So there was lots of interest now in what we're doing, lots of people reaching out to us and watching what we're doing. And the closer we get in the minds of industry and pharmaceutical companies to having a program that's moving forward, the more interest we will get. So we're already starting to see that. So, we're very pleased. We think 2023 will continue to be a big year. So we're very positive. So does that, Martin, I'm sorry, answer your question? And do you think is helpful to the audience? Would you like me to expand further?
Well, I a few more questions. Like, drug development's a difficult and expensive process to go through. Sure. And you're developing a platform technology where, like, you're Duchenne muscular dystrophy you're targeting initially. And shareholders are often, okay, dilution, you're going to have to raise some more money and so forth. Is there possibilities for partnerships at this early stage, or maybe to take the platform and license it out to another company to target some other muscle issue or disease, and then help sort of fund and sort of push the whole development process forward on many fronts without it all falling on your shoulders?
Yes, that there are possibilities. We've certainly been thinking about this. We intend to start socializing these ideas in the new year, because the field is very broad. There are opportunities. These continue to be challenging times for lots of different people, in terms of partnering and so on. We're dealing with a very hostile environment. However, we like what we're doing. We believe in what we're doing. We're seeing traction in what we're doing. So we will explore these possibilities for sure, so that we minimize the amount of capital we have to raise that, basically further puts everyone underwater. We don't want that either. It hasn't been helpful for management either, or early investors, or I personally invested in the last round of financing. I've invested in 2 previous rounds of financing. So I understand the issue. These are, really tough times that I've never seen this difficult before. But I can assure everybody on the call and anyone that we talk to that we're mindful of these, and we're out doing what we can all the time to get the word out and to attract potential collaborators.
Well, and not to be too gut, but the fact that you guys were able to do $3.5 million raise in these markets is I think speaks to the fact that you've got something legitimate and impressive going on here. Like these are not frothy markets where any goofball with a harebrained idea can raise a few $1 million. So,
well, thank you for that. We feel that way, and we're gratified we were able to do a financing in these markets. And it does speak to the uniqueness of our technology, the potential value and importance of our technology, and also that we built a really strong team, both within the company and at the board level, and with contractors that we work with now. And I would like to point out to the audience, if I may for a moment, Martin, that not only are these difficult times, but these are times that have particularly hit anything technology related. And in the biotech space, there are close to 300 biotech companies in North America right now, publicly traded, that are trading at less than their cash value, which means zero to negative technology value. And some of these companies are in clinical development. So we are in an enormously skewed market. Hopefully it can't last forever. But our job as management is to survive it and keep going. That's how we will create value. And right now, the market is not recognizing value in the way that it has in the past. That's clear. Something is really amiss, and that can't be ignored. It's not an excuse for the company, but it can't be ignored. We are trying to survive in really tough times, and we will. And we will create and continue to create value.
Well, I always perceive that the markets as almost being like the weather. You get some, like a year and a half ago, the weather was awesome. Like it was brilliant. And now, and you adapt to that. And when it turns, the winter has come, then you adapt to that and you keep going through it and you just do the best that you can. So,
and the challenge for us to keep, we're very confident that we have something that's going to, create value and going to make a change for patients. The challenge is for us to just keep moving it forward. We would like to move it as quickly as we can. We know that patients out there are waiting for these treatments, and the challenge is to continue doing that in these tough times. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're going to do. We're committed to making it happen for patients for sure.
All right. I'm sort of dealt with the topics I wanted to talk about. Is there anything you'd like to discuss or bring up before we go to, we have several questions from the audience here. Anything to bring up before the Q&A?
No?
I think we're good, Martin. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right, I have not, I'm just going to read these out. So let's see what happens here as I read them out. Are possible partnerships talks happening? When will a DC be announced? My friend, is everything moving in a positive direction? I think you've sort of addressed those, but I don't know anything in particular you can say to that?
Well, we believe that we're moving in a positive direction. We believe that we're largely on plan. Some things have slipped a little. That kind of happens in biotech. It's an unknown. Sometimes biology is a little unknown, can't be predicted with 24-hour precision. And the fact that we did raise money, that we did do a financing, that we did bring in new investors, suggests strongly to us that they also believe that we're moving forward. You know, we did an underwritten deal. We had diligence done on the company. So we believe we're moving forward. We believe we're on schedule. And if I could tell you the exact day we'll feel comfortable that we have the ultimate compound we want, I would. But what I'll tell you today is we have a short list of compounds. We have compounds that have the right kind of profile that we're looking for, in our opinion. And we're very confident in moving forward.
All right. Specifically, someone says, can you confirm if the DC, I guess, drug candidate is still on pace to be released in October? I don't know if that had been a previous milestone.
Well, I've just indicated that we have a short list of compounds, so I would say that we have checked that box.
Okay. Are you confident of Notch pathway and canine enzyme target? Because previously, I'm reading something that I just don't understand, but I'll just read it.
No problem.
Because previously it was P2P-X, but then you pivoted to canine enzyme for DMD candidate.
Yes.
Yes, that's an accurate description, basically. And this happens in drug development. It's actually a good thing, in my opinion, anyway. And I've done a lot of these companies. I've been involved in 24 companies over my 30-year career, one form or another, in all kinds of scientific fields. The last thing you want to be invested in is a company that has one option and only one option. And so what we have done with our platform is identified multiple ways to regulate regeneration of muscle and started to file patents around those different approaches. And in doing so, we believe we've identified an opportunity that has higher potential than what we were working on previously. And so we've changed the priorities, but we haven't abandoned the previous pathway. We haven't abandoned the PTPX target. We have simply changed priority, and we feel better actually right now about the results that we're seeing in our animal model systems.
And I think part of that is what we talked about earlier, which is we've identified, through the science, we've identified a lot of different targets, and we understand the mechanism very, very well. But part of the reason for prioritizing it on a different target is because of our ability to drug that target for some of these later stage aspects that we've been talking about that we need to do to really get to a pill. And so, you know, there's a number of things that come into deciding which way to go as you're moving a drug forward. So there's lots of potential opportunities, and we want to choose the right one to get us into patients as quickly as possible. And that's part of the reason for that change of priority.
Yeah, because it's not just what's going on in the test tube. It's like
on
the test tube. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As I say, we understand the science so well. That there's lots of different possibilities. We have to make sure we're on one which is going to be druggable and one that we can move forward as a therapeutic. And that's what we've been in the process of doing.
All right. On a bit of a different topic here, is there anything left to do with SkyMount?
No.
All right. When will the uplist to NASDAQ happen?
That is a tremendous question, and I wish that Nasdaq wasn't down from 16,000 to 10,000 in the last 6 months in answering the question. These environmental conditions are really, really tough. And they've got everybody on edge. Investors on edge, institutions are on edge, everybody's on edge. So, as I mentioned earlier, my job as management, as a founder of this company, as a believer in the company, is to make sure the company survives, to make sure the company is able to raise the capital it needs when it needs it, not unduly pressure the company from a dilution point of view. And we will get to NASDAQ. We will build the conditions to get to NASDAQ. We will develop the strategies we need to get to NASDAQ. And we'll get there when the combination of our progress and the market environment allows us to do that. I wish I could put a calendar date on it, but I hope people follow the market enough to know that we're dealing with very, very unexpected and harsh conditions.
Yep. Can you comment on the advancement of your potential biomarkers?
Yes, I'll let Phil talk about that, because biomarkers is an area where we're doing really well.
One of the very interesting things to me over the last few years has been, once you start dealing with drugs against some of these very complex mechanisms, the PK or the relationship between the levels of your drug in the body and the mechanism that you need to activate, the things that need to happen to get you to the effect of your drug becomes very, very important. And to monitor that both preclinically and clinically, you need a good biomarker. So a good readout of what's going on with your target and what's going on with your mechanism. We have identified a very, very good biomarker. We're very confident that it tells us about the target and is related to the mechanism. And we're using that to really understand the profile of the drug that we need and the timing of delivery of that drug to a patient that we're going to need to really see the effect on the regeneration that we're looking for. So that's some of the most exciting work, I would say, that's going on for us right now. And it's really going to be a big part of what I said earlier about deciding which of these drugs, which of these 2 or 3 drugs actually moves forward for us into IND enabling.
The biomarkers, are they there to sort of give you a marker, an indication that it's working? Or let's say when you get to further past the safety studies into the efficacy, like how do you find out if it's working? Do you have to take a little biopsy out of the patient, or just see, oh, they've gotten stronger, or you've got certain biomarkers that can indicate, oh yeah, it seems to be there's muscle growth happening?
So we can do a number, as far as readouts from the studies in terms of the efficacy or in terms of the positive effect. There's a number of things we can do. We can do performance, that the animal, or in the clinic, the person is able to perform, is stronger, can perform better. We can take biopsies. We do that very much in our preclinical studies to show that the muscle is you can actually see that it's regenerated, that the muscle has come back in areas where it was missing. When I think of more of a biomarker, it's more to do with the fact that we can be sure that we've activated the mechanism that we need to activate. So when we're looking at the drug, we want to know that we've put it in at a level and in a way where it's going to activate the mechanism to the best level we can, and therefore get the biggest sort of bang for our buck. So that's where the biomarker really comes in. So this is, something we could read out very non-invasively. We do it preclinically at the moment. We could do it in the clinic and show that we've actually hit the spot with our drug that we wanted to.
Gotcha. Just a few more are popping up here. Questions, and I think there's some question about generally sort of the drug candidates and when those are actually sort of the chosen ones. And then the question is why Satellos doesn't have a drug candidate listed on the PPMD website. Can you address that?
Yes, because PPMD only lists the relationships they have with companies that are in clinical development. And they do that so that patients don't misunderstand the stage of development of a product candidate. So when we get to that point, we will be on their website.
And that is there going to be a news release once you've got the final, whatever, handful of candidates, you sort of lock those down? You're going to put out a news release. Yes, we've locked them down, and now we're starting the IND process.
Yeah, we're debating that at the moment. It's not something that's traditionally done to say that you've issued a press release for that. But we are discussing that internally. So what I think it's more likely that we'll do is we'll provide a quarterly update following our release of our financial results towards the end of November. I think it's the third week in November, at the end of the third week in November. And we'll give further guidance on where we are with our compounds at that time. And then we'll go from there.
Okay. All right. You've recently hired Dr. Lambert. Are there any further personnel hiring we can expect? And if so, in what areas are the sort of major people be required in?
In the immediate short term, the answer is no. As we move along, particularly in the new year, then we will be looking to further broaden the team. The next area of interest for us will be a medical director. That's the most likely next area of interest for us, other than less senior hires filling out some areas of the company. So we'll be hiring more project management support and things of that nature, which is part of the normal course of clinical development.
And are you running your
preclinical and clinical development?
Are you running your own lab, or is all the IND work done to contract groups to do that for you, and you coordinate that?
Yeah, the IND typically would always be outsourced to a very regulated organization that could run those studies for us. So yeah, we'll be managing that, obviously, but it'll be outsourced to a CRO.
Okay, all right. Sounds like everything is positive. So wouldn't a big pharma want to be part of this now and help with money?
Well, if you can coordinate one for me, that would be great. I'd be happy about that. Pharma companies they're an interesting breed of cat. They often tend to be followers, not leaders. As odd as that may seem, what they like to do is come in when a lot of the heavy lifting is done, or they like to follow some of their compatriots who they think have a leg up on them. So the area of Duchenne muscular dystrophy is one in which the major pharmaceutical companies, many of them do not have a franchise in the area. Some do. One in particular, for example, Pfizer, is heavily committed publicly to gene therapy. I think more likely will be some of the larger biotechnology companies. And we're just not quite at the stage where they would put dollars down on our program versus their in-house programs. But I think we're getting very close to the point that we can persuade them differently. So when I said earlier, we will be exploring all kinds of different ways to develop the company, this is on our radar and on our list.
All right. And I think we should be wrapping this up here. One final question here. The recent $3.5 million raise, how far can we expect this to last? And how did you come up with that amount? Why $3.5 million?
Well, in our prospectus, we've described all of this, so I'll just repeat that in the prospectus, we provided a cash flow through to the second quarter of 2023. with this financing, and then beyond that is also in the prospectus. And we made a choice between the amount of money available at the time and the price of the money, and settled on a number that we felt would allow us to meet our critical milestones of nominating a development candidate and being able then to attract more interest in the company. So that's how we came up with that particular arrangement.
And with milestones, let's say by the end of Q1 of next year, you're going to have hopefully the weather or the markets is better at that point, but B, you're going to have de-risked the whole project, presumably at that point as well, and can hopefully then leverage that at a less dilutive price to raise additional funds.
Yeah, and that's a very good way of putting it, Martin, and I wish I'd thought to do that myself. The whole exercise in the biotech world is continuing to advance and continuing to de-risk. And so the more that you can do of both, the more attractive you become to third parties and to the market generally. So we will have further de-risked what we're working on. We will have further provided evidence in support of what we're working on. And of course, we will have then, in our view, we will have the kind of molecules that others will say, okay, we're ready maybe to either start talking or to, in other ways, support what you're doing.
Yeah, because whenever you're raising money, there's always that balance of it'd be great to buy yourself a 10-year runway. You don't have to worry about that, but that's you're going to be, if it's even possible, you're going to be punishing kind of existing shareholders now. So there's always that balance of how much runway to de-risk and what milestones you can get. And
Right.
Yeah, there's never the right answer. It's always just a bunch of trade-offs.
Absolutely. So, we think we think this is a good, we're at a good juncture. We're super excited. I don't know what else to say. We're excited. We know we're onto something that's very different. It has the potential to be very, very profound, and we're just so very, very close to really putting ourselves on the map.
All right. Well, I think we've kind of hit the key points there, and we should be wrapping things up. So unless you have any other final notes here, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time to talk and to bring people up to speed.
Okay, and thank you, Martin. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. So thanks a lot, and thanks to your audience.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.